everyone, it's Max, and today I am here with my August wrap-up. I can't believe it's already September. Can anyone believe it? This year has pretty much totally flown by compared to last year. Now, I did not read as much in August as other Augusts, but I just didn't have the Newts readathon to like spur me on. I didn't have any readathons actually. I had a month of just like reading whatever I wanted to read and just having a really good month. Now, I had a really fantastic reading month ratings wise. I read a lot of new favorites and a lot of 5-star reads. Can't believe it, but I have enjoyed some really great books this month. Now, I believe I read, like, fully finished 13 books and DNF'd 3. I did count 2 of the DNFs as books that I finished because I read over 50% of one, maybe of both, and at least over 200 pages of another. And then one I didn't count because I barely got through it and just decided not to continue. But without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book that I read was The Winterlong by Seanan McGuire, and I loved this. It was so good. I love the October Daye series just so much. I'm reading a book of that series a month. I'm gonna be so sad when I'm all caught up. But I love Toby. Now, this series is about a half-fae named October Daye who spends 14 years as a fish. And when she comes back from being a fish, she has to get used to this new world with a human husband who hates her and a child who doesn't want anything to do with her. And she tries to get away from her like fae duke and become a PI. But when her closest fae friend dies and tasks her with finding her murderer, she's thrown back into the thick of things. Now, I love this series, and this book in particular was so awesome because it felt like a culmination of all the books so far. We had enemies that we had been kind of building to, like that seemed like the big boss, at least for this first plot arc for the series. And so, you know, it all really culminated and it was amazing. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was definitely the best so far. I love Toby. I love Tybalt. I love all of our characters, but I'm just saving that 5-star for something really just that blows me away. Next book that I read was my Joe Abercrombie book of the month, and this one really surprised me, and that was Best Served Cold. I was not expecting to love this because I read the First Law trilogy while I was in Egypt in June and July and didn't really love it. The first book was good, the second book was really great, and the third book would have been really awesome if any of our main characters ended in a good spot. But seeing as none of them did, I had a really hard time enjoying the series as a whole, but this one was a completely different story. We follow, I can never remember her name, it's a strange name. We follow Monza, and she was the captain of these 1,000 sellswords, but when the Duke realizes that she works for, realizes that she is more popular than him and his sons, he tries to kill her and attempts to and achieves at killing her brother. And she wakes up, she was healed by this scientist, and she wakes up swearing revenge against these people who killed her brother and tried to kill her. She teams up with the old captain of the sellswords as well as some other interesting people, some of whom we knew from the last series, and they get revenge. I loved it. There were 7 people she needed to get revenge, 9 people, something like that. And it was like, it worked out super well. There was some really low points, there were some great high points, and our characters ended, at least our main character Monza, ended in a really good spot. Now that I'm currently reading Heroes, the next book in this trilogy of standalones, and one of our main characters from that series has not ended up in a great spot, but I do have hope for the end of that book. But overall, I actually really loved this. I love a good tale of revenge. I love a strong female main character, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Next book that I finished was an audiobook, and that was my first Mercedes Lackey book of the month, and that was The Black Griffin. This is her first series chronologically in the Valdemar universe. This is before Valdemar is formed, and this follows 2 countries at war, one of whom has a sorcerer that created griffins to help fight, and one of whom has a sorcerer that created these like big birds of prey to fight. We follow the griffin. A griffin is one of our main characters, as is a healer, and this was okay. I did decide to DNF the second book, and I have decided not to continue Mercedes Lackey. I just don't think her writing's for me. I find her plots very boring. Her characters are okay, but I just, like, the only series that I've enjoyed by her was the Talia series, the Arrows trilogy, and even then it didn't blow me away. And so I have just decided to stop reading her books one a month. If she comes out with something, like she came out with something recently, I think it was a Sleeping Beauty retelling, that does really intrigue me, so I'm definitely gonna pick it up at some point, but I've decided to discontinue reading a book of hers a month. But I did give The Black Griffin a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Wings of Shadow by Nikki Palpretto. This is the third and last book in the Crown of Feathers trilogy, and I loved it. This follows our main character named Veronica, who disguises herself as a boy to become a phoenix rider in a country that it is illegal to be a phoenix rider, and especially to have animal magic where you can connect with animals. And we also follow her sister Val, who is let's say the trilogy as a whole, Veronica goes the good way, Val goes the bad way, the dark and light, the light way, the dark way, you know. I loved this ending. I think it was a great series end. I love the trilogy as a whole. I have given each book 5 out of 5 stars, this one included. I just enjoy them so much, and I am so sad it's done. I'm so excited to pick up whatever she writes next. I hope it is just as good as this trilogy. We follow multiple characters and their point of views. We also have Kristen, who is the son of the leader of the Phoenix Rider, and he's also, his dad's like a duke or something. And we follow a guy named Sev. I cannot remember his name, but he's an animage who's in hiding, he's a soldier for the country where being an animage is illegal, but he is an animage, they just don't know it. And he teams up with the animage rebel group, let's say. It was so good. I loved this trilogy as a whole. I'm so excited that it ended great, and I just recommend it to anyone. I feel like not enough people have read it, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was an arc that I had called, which is Iron Widow by Siran J. Zhao. I definitely pronounced that wrong. I am so sorry. This is a dystopian Earth, we believe, and it follows a girl who signs up to be what is called a Iron Maiden something, where they team up with these men and they share like chi, like their spirit and soul, to fight these creatures, like these alien creatures. And she ends up going to try and kill the guy who killed her sister. A lot of women die in this process because the men just suck up their chi, but her sister was actively murdered, and so she's like, I'm gonna go and get revenge. Well, she does it while their chis are intertwined, so she becomes something called an Iron Widow, which means she is powerful enough to kill men while being intertwined through their spirits. So she is teamed up with a very powerful fighter, but he murdered his family, and so he is deemed like very dangerous. He's locked up at all times except when he's fighting, and she has become like his second, and she lives and they fight together. There is a polyamorous relationship, which is so awesome and so unexpected. I really liked our main character. I think her motivations were really strong and totally made sense. I am so excited for the sequel, which is a bummer because I read this as an arc, and I am so excited for the sequel. It ended on quite the plot twist, and I just can't wait. I did give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I do believe this is going to be the September fairy loot, so I'm really excited to have like a physical copy because it was just so good. The next book I finished was actually a buddy read between my best friend and me, and that was Daughter of Sparta by Claire M. Andrews. And this is a retelling of the Daphne and Apollo myth, but like very much kind of different because it's mixed with a bunch of different myths like Theseus and the Labyrinth, and it's going into the Trojan War. So the Olympians are dying. Their power is being sucked away because the 9 muses were kidnapped. And Apollo is tasked with finding out where they are, and his sister Artemis chooses a human to help him, and she chooses Daphne. And so Daphne and Apollo go on this journey, and she's really not into Apollo. Like, she knows all of the stories about what he's done to women and to others, and she is like so nervous about him, and she handles it so well. She is such a great fighter. She's not not from Sparta, but she was raised by a Spartan family, so she is seen as an outsider, but she is just so strong and so great. She doesn't trust Apollo at all, so she finds out where each muse is, and she doesn't tell him until like it's time for the next one. And I think she just handles things so well. I did enjoy this. I am going to read the sequel, and I think because Apollo was on the side of the Trojans, so I think she's gonna be like on the Trojan side, which I feel like there are never books that like follow like the Trojans as the heroes. I feel like they are always the bad guy. So I'm really interested in that, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rosh and Kristen Simmons. And this is in a world that each country is ruled by a different god, and they're all gods of the elements. And our main characters are from the country that is ruled by the fire god and the earth god. And our main female character has power of fire, and so when the two gods go to war, she is chosen as the fire god's champion to fight the earth god's champion, who is our other main character who doesn't actually have earth magic. He has a magic that hasn't been seen for centuries, and she thinks it'll help her turn the tide in the war. She is a rebel. She wants to take down the gods. I did enjoy this. I feel like the ending, like what happened in the end was so, like, it should not have happened in one book. It should have been a multiple book arc. This is a duology, but like either it should have been longer or it should be a longer series, because it was so rushed. I really liked our female main character, Ash. She is so wise. Like, she hates her god. She's like, our god screws us over. He's like making us like destitute and starving. But she starts to learn that gods are actually teaming up against her god. And she's kind of like, okay, wait a second. What if our god's actually like doing the best he can? And like no one wants to listen to her. And so she keeps like brushing it off and brushing it off. And I'm like, no, I think like she's on to something. And I feel like most main characters don't actually like go that route until like, if they ever do, like the very end. So I really liked that like she really started picking up on that early, and I think that that shows like how wise and mentally strong she is as a main character. And I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is a book that I did DNF, and that was Creation Abomination by Alan W. Thompson. This is about a grad student who is doing stem cell research and trying to cure debilitating disabilities, and he realizes that getting embryonic stem cells is the key. And so there's this big discussion about whether or not that's ethical, and while he is doing it, it is actually creating like a monster. Now, I thought this was going to be all science. Like, yeah, he thought like mutating these embryonic stem cells was going to be do the trick, but it actually created a monster. That I would have been like totally into, and instead it's magic. Like, it's basically magic, because he's dating a girl whose dad like went to Israel and got like these necklaces that were like blessed by a Jewish man of faith, and brought them back, and like something happened where something went from his necklace into the embryonic stem cell, and his partner in this endeavor, his girlfriend, is like using him to get something, and she knows about the magic, and it just didn't work. Like, I was like, okay, I was 200 and something pages into it, and it was just boring. And there was no description of anything. Our main character, I mean, it was like, she has black hair that is 1 inch below the shoulders and green eyes. Like, it was just too clinical. And he just like, it was like, when he met his girlfriend in the beginning, he was like, she has glasses, but I don't know if it's for show or if she actually needs them. And I'm like, okay, shut up. He felt like a hipster incel boy, and I just wasn't into that at all. And I felt like we had 2 girl characters, and one was a whore, and one was like, she's not actually the virgin, but like basically, you know, the virgin and the whore, and the nice and the bad. And it just like, and like he was all, our main character was all about the good of the people. His partner was all about greed. Like, it was too black and white. I was like, I need some gray morality here. It can't all be just like cut and dry. That doesn't make for an interesting story. So I did DNF this. I wish I had enjoyed it, especially because I have it signed and I met the author, but it just didn't work for me. The next book I read is one of my favorites of the year. So is Best Served Cold, and that was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Oh my God, this was so good. I loved it. So this is Andy Weir's third book. He is the author of The Martian. I really enjoyed The Martian. I didn't like Artemis as much, and so he came back with a vengeance with Project Hail Mary, because it is without a doubt my favorite. This is about a man who wakes up on a space station or a rocket ship, and he doesn't remember anything, and the two people who are on the rocket ship with him are dead. So throughout the book, he's remembering more and more, so we get these flashbacks, and we learn that the Earth, like, our sun is dying. It is losing energy, and so our planet is becoming colder and colder. And they're able to get these things that they find are actually like aliens, microorganism aliens, and they are feeding off the sun. And they are looking throughout all these galaxies to try and find a solution, and they find one galaxy whose sun isn't dying. And so he and two other people are sent to try and find out why their sun isn't dying. I loved this. It was so good. I really liked our past timeline. I really liked our present timeline. Usually I have a preference, and usually it's like pretty strong, but this, I loved all of it. I loved all of our characters. I thought they were all so well nuanced. I love Rocky. I'm not gonna say who Rocky is because it's a big spoiler, but I loved Rocky. He is my favorite, and I just really, really enjoyed this. And what I liked about the character development is you didn't really know that there was character development until the end, when he finally remembers like this big thing, and you're like, oh, look at you growing as a person. And it was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. The next book that I read was Bridgerton, The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. This is the book that inspired the show Bridgerton, at least the first season. The author has written about each Bridgerton sibling, and each book is a different sibling. Each season is going to be a different sibling. So this follows Daphne, who is the oldest daughter. And it is her it's a few years after her coming out season, and men have lost interest. And then we follow Simon, who is a new duke, and he does not want a wife. He has sworn off marriage. He has sworn off having an heir. And so they team up and like have a fake courtship because it gets women off his back, and it makes her more eligible in the eyes of other men. I actually really enjoyed this up until a point, and it happened in the show as well. And I'm going to say it because it is like a big thing. She rapes him, basically. In the show, they're like having sex, and she forces him to spend himself in her. And he doesn't want kids. And she agreed to that. And yes, he's very vague in the way that he just thinks she knows what he's talking about, but like she doesn't. And because her mom never taught her anything about the ways of like having a child. And in the show, they actually have a conversation about it, like she and her mom, like after the fact, she's like, you didn't prepare me. This sucked. Like, you have to do better with my siblings. In the book, that didn't happen, which really disappointed me. But in the book, he's drunk and half asleep. Like she wakes up, and men are stiff when they first wake up, you know? And she like notices that, and she has sex with him while he's basically passed out, which is really, really gross. And they like don't talk about it, and like they have a fight, but then he just decides, okay, I'll have kids, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, wait, like no. And it just was really uncomfortable, and that was so unfortunate, because if that hadn't happened, this would have been a really high rating, because I really liked our main characters. I liked the story. Instead, I gave it 3.75, 4 out of 5 stars, because I did really like the rest of it. That was just really unfortunate. The next book that I read was One Last Stop by Casey Mcquisten, and I really, really enjoyed this. This follows a girl who is new, named August, who is new to New York. She's taking the subway to class every day, and she keeps seeing this girl named Jane on the subway. And she's kind of falling for her, but Jane is like enigmatic. They kind of make plans, but then she never follows through. And August finds out she is stuck on the subway. She cannot get off. Now, I thought Jane was going to know that going in, but Jane like doesn't realize it. She's only like aware when people notice her. And so August keeps noticing her because August is into her. And so August starts and uses all of her new friends who she like lives with. I love all the supporting characters, and they all try to figure out how to get Jane off this subway. What I really liked about this is that there's a scientific explanation. It's not like true love breaks the curse, which it almost felt like it was going down that route for a second, but I knew knew, because Becca from Becca in the Books read it, that that wasn't the case. And I mean, even though the science is a little sketchy, but of course it is, like, you know, this is just for fun. It was interesting, like, what she decided to have the science be. I really enjoyed it. I liked the romance. I liked her main character. What I really liked about her is her mom. Her mom is trying to solve the mystery of her missing brother. And she's been trying to do it ever since August was born, basically. And she has taught August a lot of questionable things, like how to break into places, how to trick people, and all this stuff. But August, like, when she leaves home to go to college, she's like, I'm done. No more. I don't want to be part of this. And she actually sticks to her guns. She's not a pushover. She doesn't let her mom just like use her. She's like, no. She's like her mom will send her stuff and she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I told you I'm done. And I really, really, really like that. But overall, really enjoyed this, and I did give it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Oh, and then I also really liked, you know, each romance has to have a fight between our two love interests, and a lot of times I find it ridiculous and totally blown out of proportion. But I thought the fight in this was actually really warranted and really understandable on Jane's side. And I really, really liked it. And I thought it was just honestly really awesome. So, you know, it might be a 4.5 out of 5 stars, maybe even a 5. It didn't blow my mind like Red, White, and Royal Blue, but definitely 4.25, 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, and then the last physical book that I read this month was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. And this is a Hades and Persephone retelling set in the city of Olympus. This is in the same world as the Wicked Villain series by Katie Robert, just a different city. Now, in this city, people have roles, and each role is based on a Greek god. So Zeus basically runs the whole thing. Our main character, Persephone's mom, Demeter, is like kind of controls agriculture in this city, and Persephone is betrothed to Zeus without her knowledge. So she runs away. She runs to Hades' side of the city, basically. It's a city, and you have to cross the river Styx to get over to Hades' country, or part of it. And Hades has been taught as a myth. Like, Persephone is raised to think that Hades isn't a real person anymore, that the last Hades died and they haven't filled the position. But when she goes over to that side, she finds out that Hades is very much real and very much attractive. So they make a deal, because Persephone thinks that if she is shown to like be having sex and being debauched by Hades and everything, that Zeus will no longer want her. And I think Hades' part of the deal was like, he just gets to get back at Zeus, basically. And in the end, they do, you know, as they go along with this farce, they end up falling in love. Oh, I'm really nervous that this cut me off early. I don't think it did, but I'm a little nervous that it did, but hopefully it didn't. But so they end up falling in love in the middle of this farce. So I enjoyed this. I don't know why I didn't enjoy, like, I feel like I'm not enjoying it as much as I like should have, because I really like Persephone. I really like Hades. I like their romance, but for some reason, I'm just not loving it like I did with some of the Wicked Villain series books. But like, again, like, I don't know why, because honestly, I like Persephone and Hades as a love couple, like as a couple, more than most of them in the Wicked Villain series. But for some reason, I just didn't like it as much. I still enjoyed it, and this cover is gorgeous. I love these colors, and I'm excited for Electric Idol. So the series follows, the first book follows Persephone, and the next, I believe it's gonna be 3 books, or 4 books, like 3 more books, follows each of her sisters, because there's 4 of them. There's Persephone, there's Eurydice. Oh, there's 4 of them, and they're all different Greek myths. What I do wish from this is that besides like the gods, I wish that there were more myths like intertwined. Like, I wish Hercules was, I don't know, some like big famous sports guy or a himbo or something. But you know, we don't have that, which is a little bit of a bummer. We might in the upcoming books. What are her siblings' names? There's Persephone, Eurydice, Calliope, and I can't remember the next one. Like, Electric Idol follows Aphrodite's son and Eros and Psyche. Follow Psyche. There we go. But anyways, I did enjoy this, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5 stars. All right, the next book is the second or third DNF, I guess, of the month, but the second one that I still counted, and that was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Clune. I think it's time for me to give up on TJ Clune. I have DNF'd the two books I've tried to read by him. The first one's because I really didn't like the main character. I thought he was so annoying. This one is because it was boring, and again, I just didn't really care that much about the characters. The plot, there wasn't really a plot. The writing was average. I just didn't enjoy it, which is such a bummer because people love TJ Clune. I just, you know, if I see House on the Cerulean Sea or Wolf Song or whatever the other series is, like at the library, yeah, I'll pick it up. But I'm never gonna go out of my way to buy any of his books again. And I want to love them, but I just don't. It was just boring and average. It was fine. The next book that I finished was When Night Breaks by Hanela Angeles. This is the sequel to Where Dreams Descend. And I enjoyed it. It didn't feel very connected to the first book. This series is about a girl who is a magician. Like, she has magic. And she has been kind of kept basically in captivity by this guy who, I think there's a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome there, where she thinks like she's in love, but then she starts to realize that he's really emotionally abusive. She runs away and she joins this competition to become part of this very huge, famous circus. And she's the only woman who applied, and she starts to fall in love with the guy who is like creating this circus. I liked the first one. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the romance, but the second one didn't have like any of that. The romance was so lackluster. I actually started like wanting her with someone else, and they were apart for almost the whole book. I didn't like our like main guy's point of view at all. I thought it was so boring. I do like our main female character. I can't remember her name, but I like her a lot actually. But she was like the only one, and I just kind of, it felt so disconnected from the first book. And in the end, it kind of was just like, there was no plot resolution. Like, it just like, okay, like it didn't feel like there was much to finish. Like the climax, it didn't really feel like there was a climax. Like it just kind of petered off, which was so unfortunate, and I ended up giving it a 3.25 out of 5 stars. And then the last book that I read was What Once Was Mine by Liz Braswell, which is the newest Twisted Tale book. I got an arc of it, and this follows Rapunzel, and it's what if instead of drinking the sunflower, her mom drunk the moonflower, which gave Rapunzel killing powers. I think Liz Braswell could have done so much more with this. I wanted her to make like Rapunzel an assassin. Train her to be an assassin. Like, come on. But she just like locks her in the tower, just like always. It's just the only difference is that she's like auctioning her off. Like her powers off. Like, oh, you know, who will pay the most to have this assassin? And guess what? She's actually the crown princess. And it just like, nothing happened. The insta-love was so choking, and it just like didn't work. She added a whole new main character. Like there's Rapunzel, Flynn, and then this girl named Gina. I really like Gina. I think Gina and Flynn have chemistry, and Rapunzel and Gina have chemistry, but Rapunzel and Flynn do not have chemistry. And it just was so average, which is such a bummer. Liz Braswell, she is so hit or miss for me. My camera's right in front of the rest of the Twisted Tale books, so I'm like looking at them. Like, I enjoyed Aladdin. Beauty and the Beast was too similar to the movie. Like, I'm like, why is this a Twisted Tale? Like, they gotta be different. Maybe that's the problem that I had with What Once Was Mine, where it really didn't make a difference. Like, it didn't matter. Part of Your World was good, and then I loved Unbirthday. Unbirthday was so phenomenal. She captured Lewis Carroll's writing so well, and I really liked both the Wonderland story and the Earth story. But this just fell flat and was just really unfortunate, and I gave it a 2.75 out of 5 stars. All right, everyone, that is it for my August wrap up. I read a few books. A lot of them were hits, especially earlier in the month, and then I feel like it kind of petered off near the end. But overall, I did have a great reading month. I'm so excited to just dive into September. I am participating in the Magical Readathon and Becca's Bookopoly-thon, both month-long readathons. Go check out my TBR if you're interested, and then keep an eye out for my upcoming vlogs. And I will see you all soon with another video. Bye!